The Last of Us 1 was a masterpiece and a critically acclaimed game that was highly praised by both critics and the gaming community. The game was released in 2013 and 7 years later, we received The Last of Us 2. The sequel to the events of the first Last of Us was crucial and desired by the majority of the gaming community to get a sequel, due to the ending that we received in the first game. Joel's fatherly instincts of picking Ellie over the world, followed by Joel lying to Ellie, saying that there are dozens of immune people and that they stopped looking for a cure, has actually made the gaming community beg for a sequel to the masterpiece that was The Last of Us 1. I played and finished The Last of Us Part 2 in about 26 hours, and this is my review. This review will consist of my opinions and thoughts in the game. I have opinions that align with the majority of the community and also have opinions that align with the minority of the community. I have somewhat sectioned the game into about 5 parts in which I criticize and reward the games for certain things. But first, you need to know my rating out of 10 for both The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2. For the first Last of Us, I gave it a strong 9.3 out of 10, and the second Last of Us, I give it a generous 5.5 out of 10. Let's get started. Section 1, the first 2 hours of the game. The first 2 hours of the game was solid. What I refer to as the first 2 hours is everything that happened before Joel's death. Because roughly around the 2 hour mark in my gameplay is when I witnessed Abby getting the shotgun to Joel's knee and blowing it off. And everything that happened that ultimately, in my opinion, triggered the downfall of the game. But that's for section 2 and everything that follows. Anyway, the first 2 hours of the game, in my opinion, was solid. I was kind of confused to why we played as Abby, but I didn't really question it too much. I thought of it maybe as a subplot. I was more confused by the physique of Abby, but hey ho, what can we do? When we was in Jackson, it was quite good in my opinion. It was a slow moment in the storyline because obviously it was a start, and it also felt like the storyline drove Ellie out of Jackson way too quick. It's almost becoming a cliche of starting in a community protected from zombies and all of a sudden leaving the community for a minor threat turned massive. But regardless, it was a cliche that I knew was going to happen eventually. We couldn't talk and develop proper relationships except for a couple lines with Jesse, Maria, Seth and Dina. But I was like, okay, that's kind of empty dialogue it is. Hey, what can we do? But we was forced to connect with Dina very early on, but I was okay with that because hey, Dina was one of the characters that stood out early on and it made sense to why we were going out of Jackson with her. Clearly she is going to be an interesting character, but I felt like the whole chat with Dina all the way up to Eugene's secret weed farm was filler and empty dialogue, talking about some cringe night where Dina and Ellie kissed. Okay, it's funny and a smooth way to get into a deeper conversations between Dina and Ellie, but those deep conversations never really happened. It never really took off. Characters that we don't really even see a whole lot in the game, but hey, that's for a later section. What was good was the implementation of Abby's fear of heights. From the moment Owen wants to show her Jackson from a high vantage point, the player is given hints of Abby's fear of heights. And this was something that they actually stuck to the whole game, which was one of the few consistent parts of the game. As the game progresses, it makes you, the player, see that this behind this crazy built like an ox woman is actually a soft person who actually also fears things. On the other hand, Ellie and Dina's conversations, as I have stated before, never really took off. In my opinion, it's extremely hard to try to connect the player with characters that have already had a pre-existing relationship when the audience or the player doesn't really care about them too much. I call this the imbalance of care. If you don't understand what I mean here, let me give you an example. Ellie is now 19 in the game and has been living in Jackson for a couple strong years. She has known Dina for a couple of years as well. However, we've only known Dina for 2 hours, and thus we don't really care if she's living, if she dies. We don't really care about her life or anything. Yes, of course, we only know her for 2 hours, and thus we don't care about her. We don't care about her life, like I said. We don't care if she dies, lives or what. Ellie cares for Dina, but we the players do not care the same way Ellie cares for Dina. This is important especially for Dina, as she is one of the longest surviving characters and sticks it out to the end where she has an ambiguous fate. However, we still don't really care about her all the way up to the end of the game. She's one of the good guys, but that's about it. I didn't really care for her way too much. I thought she was an interesting character, but wasn't really like, oh my god, I'd be so sad if she dies. Kudos to Naughty Dog for attempting to make you care by involving you with her the whole game. But there was very little time for character development and time to connect with Dina, so I don't know where Naughty Dog was trying to go with there. As a whole, the first 2 hours of the game was rather promising. It built a sense of a caring community in the Jackson base by including bars, breakfast on demand, people talking underneath lights, kids running around, etc. Jesse was hinted to be a leader type character and Dina was seen a bit of a rebel. Ellie has leader and rebel type characteristics, and it makes sense that Jesse and Dina were some of the closer friends to Ellie. I'm gonna try not to get angry. Why the would you kill Joel in the first 2 hours of a game that fans have waited for over 7 years? Whoever at Naughty Dog thought that was a good idea needs to get fired. I'm not gonna go over the time limit for this section because I feel like a lot of you guys already know what I want to say. I'm still gonna voice my opinion, and I'm gonna try to add some constructive criticism, if you will. Joel's death felt premature, and when I played it, I actually did not believe what just happened. No, like literally, my brain was like, there's no way Naughty Dog would do that. It reminded me so much of Kenny's and Jane's treatment in season 3 of The Walking Dead Telltale that I was just like, there's no way they could follow, like they could do something as bad as that. But this is arguably as bad as Kenny and Jane's treatment in The Walking Dead Telltale. My brain refused to believe it all the way up until they shown Joel's grave. I was like, okay, maybe he's just really hurt, something along those lines. But no, Joel Miller's grave was very present, and you see Ellie mourning. It's so out of character for Joel to give his name because Joel was always the type of guy in the Last of Us universe, and we've learned this about him, that would go a step beyond everyone to make sure his mind is at peace and that he's safe. And basically what Joel's character was a man that took precautions, which the developers obviously knew because they implemented it later into the game in one of the flashbacks when Joel and Ellie go fight the clickers, and they actually go inside an area where there are spores evident. So obviously Joel tells Ellie to put on her mask regardless of her immunity, because there's always the possibility they could run into someone they know or don't know. Obviously Ellie's immunity is top secret, and she could be very vulnerable if someone found out that. Joel in the first game, if you guys remember, drove a car over a man who was begging for help because Joel had the gut instinct that the unknown man was pretending to be hurt in order to ambush Joel and Ellie. Joel turned out to be right. This is the type of person Joel was, not someone that would give out his real name to 5-6 strangers. Without Joel's death, there'd obviously be no purpose for Ellie to embark on the journey of revenge and justice. But in my opinion, here's how it should have been. It should have been sacrificing Tommy instead of Joel, because his role is minimal compared to Joel, right? Instead of Joel, because obviously fans waited over 7 years to re-embark with Joel, this is a way for Joel to still be involved and on the redemption arc, whilst also we can see the progression of Ellie's and Joel's relationship improve slowly, because Ellie being angry at Joel obviously makes sense. You see, that part of the story makes sense why Ellie's angry at Joel. Seeing it, if Tommy was the one who died and Joel wasn't present during that period, if Joel was, for example, back at Jackson, it would make sense to re-embark Joel and Ellie back on the story, seeing their relationship progress for the better eventually, to forcing them together to be back on the road. So when they're back on the road for redemption for Tommy, obviously it starts a bit more awkward, and then eventually you kind of get that Last of Us 1 feeling. If you force them together to be on the road, it will give a similar atmosphere to the first game, which was a masterpiece, right? If anything, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You want to try and get as close as to the first Last of Us, but also have some sort of originality and creativity in it. So Joel would be grieving Tommy's death, and obviously he'd be wanting revenge. Ellie would be angry as well, because Ellie at some point actually spent more time with Tommy than Joel, shortly after the events of The Last of Us 1. Ellie found out the truth about the hospital and her immunity and how Joel actually lied to her. You get a flashback where Ellie and Tommy hunt together. This gives a hint that Ellie did have a connection with Tommy, which is obviously through that flashback, it's very much emphasized. Anyway, this scene's Naughty Dog's directorial intent was to obviously create an emotion where we are angry and we want to go for revenge against Abby, which is obviously the case. But not only are we angry, we are frustrated and angry at Abby, yes, but we're also very angry at Naughty Dog for this rubbish treatment of a character. Look, I'm not against Joel dying at all. Joel's fate was ultimately going to be death. Obviously, from the moment he walked into The Last of Us 1, we all knew at some point he was gonna die. But this early into the game was stupid from a writing perspective. Let us get comfortable and emotional with Joel once again, then hit us with this death later in the storyline, roughly around 10 hours or sometime later, where we are more vulnerable and we're more immersed into the game. Not 2 hours when we're just settling into the game, because for me it left it just feels like a sour taste in my mouth, and it makes us exit out of the immersive experience because we're more angry at Naughty Dog rather than Abby, and so we take out our anger on Abby. Do you understand? Terrible writing. Naughty Dog, you should be ashamed. Section 3, Ellie's day 1 to 3. But hey, I feel like this is going to be an interesting section because I'm not entirely sure on how I feel about Ellie's day 1 to 3. There was some decent aspects into Ellie's day 1 to 3, but I truly felt like I got bored at times, and I felt like the days were dragging on for far too long, in my opinion. And this even becomes more annoying and more prominent in Abby's day 1 to 3, which is in section 4. For example, I felt like day 1 dragged on for way too long, and basically, to keep it short and sweet, it was very gameplay heavy with little addition to the storyline. There wasn't a lot of slow moments where the action is slowed down and it's actually more about character development, understanding the characters and actually getting to like the characters. Very little addition to the storyline was sent because of this. I do enjoy some of the gameplay aspects, however, when it's gameplay aspect after gameplay aspect, I feel like, I don't know, it's just far too much to do at one point. Dina's and Ellie's searching around while jotting down on the map was extremely long, and I can't lie, it was very boring to an extent. Sometimes I found it interesting, you know, going around. Obviously, this is still Ellie's day 1, for example, where we're jotting around, you know, marking place by place in the maps. You know, we were still kind of fresh into the game, so, you know, there was a little bit of leeway there. However, by day 2 and 3, it just gets a bit boring because it's just the same thing with different enemies. You know, stealth you can do, or you can just face them head on, and just, I don't know, I think repetition is a bit of a iffy one, because it just reminds me, for example, of Grand Theft Auto missions in GTA. After a while, you know, it's kind of the same thing as either you chase someone down in a car and you kill them, you chase them down to follow them, or that sort of thing, innit? So I feel like in The Last of Us 2, it was a lot of the same in like very short spaces of time, so it kind of felt too similar and very boring. I definitely can't say, like, for example, the jotting down around the map while going on the horse with Dina wasn't necessary, because it was necessary, but I feel like the execution was quite boring and quite poor from Naughty Dog themselves. I feel like, going back to what I was saying in section 2, I feel like this would have been the perfect way to add Joel into the storyline by using Dina's pregnancy to do a time skip to go back to Jackson, spend the night there, talk to some of the characters, actually get a bit of understanding. Obviously, there will be time skips, so we won't actually have to go fight all the way back. You might be saying, so why did we go all this way with Dina? But if she's pregnant, this would be the perfect way to add Joel back into the storyline. You know, we go back to Jackson, spend the night there, return Dina to Jackson, get Joel and Jesse back on the road with Ellie to go on the hunt for Abby's murder, of, if it was up to me, of Tommy. If Tommy died, that would have been possible. That would have been a much better story. Jesse was a much better character than Dina. I liked him more in the short space, in the short amount of dialogue we actually got from him. So him coming in at the middle of day 2 and disappearing to go after Tommy like 2 hours later made his character potential decrease to 0, and he was a very pointless character because of how little he was involved. But he had so much potential. I feel like compared to Dina, who was there for far too long, she didn't really add much to the storyline except actually give you a bit of dialogue while you're searching for the place. So I don't know. That's for me for section 3, but I don't know. I feel like the execution was poor. There was some fun moments, I can't lie, like fighting a lot of the hunters, the zombies in general, and some of the people, learning about the WLF, and then later on you hearing about the scars. That was quite interesting. You learn more about them in section 4 in Abby's day 1 to 3, but that part was good. But I just felt like there's the constant action. There's just not enough time for storyline development, which is why we generally bought the game, to learn about the story. Section 4, how dare you make this game so poor? Anyway, Abby's day 1 to 3. This was the worst, and I'm trying not to swear here because demonetization and everything, like, my channel needs all the help it can get. This was the worst part of the game. Naughty Dog employees, if you're watching this is just my opinion that I just tend to share with the majority of the fan base. This section
equates to The Walking Dead, in my opinion. A New Frontier in particular, if you remember. Firstly, why are we playing as Abby, and why the hell are we going back in time? Yes, you could say, oh, this is because we need to see from her perspective. No, we don't want to see her perspective. This part was so boring and I was confused so much. I didn't want to play it because we was Abby, but I also just wanted to play it just so I can finish it as quick as possible so I can go back to Ellie. This part, for most people, took over 10 hours and I hated every part of it. Mostly every part of it anyway. I basically didn't like it to the point where I would not bother scavenging the whole place as Abby because I just couldn't be asked, because obviously we're playing as Abby. Eventually we'd go back to Ellie. Ellie was the main character. With Ellie, I'd scavenged the whole place like 17 times to the point where they start giving me hints because they think I'm stuck. But no, as Abby, I just didn't care. I'd literally hardly loot. I'd literally just go for a bit of ammo and that's it, fam. I really did not care. I just wanted to finish it as quick as possible so I can go back to Eddie's storyline. When I said this equates to The Walking Dead: The New Frontier, it's the same way in which they forced us to play as Javier Garcia as the main character when all we cared about was Clementine. Here as well, we played as Abby for over 10 hours when we bought the game just for Joel and Ellie. So what's going on? I don't understand what these game developers think, but whoever was in charge of that decision to include Abby's day 1 to 3 was definitely under the influence. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it so Ellie and Abby are both good people and bad people, and it's not as black and white as you might think. Just because we like Ellie, it doesn't necessarily mean that Abby's a bad person. Just because Abby done one bad thing doesn't mean she wasn't justified, etc. Because in a way, of course, yes, she's kind of justified for killing Joel, but obviously we don't like Abby. But we don't care. If you think our loyalty is going to change, then you're stupid. Joel killed an NPC, a non-playable character for you scrubs, in the first game when he saved Ellie at the end of the game. An NPC that we didn't care about in the first game, and thus our actions really did influence the game. It was kind of a neat thing from Naughty Dog, and it kind of showed the potential this game had, because a little detail like that really did a lot. So Joel killed an NPC, obviously the doctor, in order to save Ellie, and we killed so many non-playable characters, and the message was that we don't really care about those non-playable characters, but Naughty Dog kind of wanted to bring life to those non-playable characters and bring the fact that even though we don't know them and those NPCs might be so minor, they all have their own lives in the apocalypse. They all have people they know, etc. That was well done, I can't lie. But, you know, seeing an irrelevant character dying created a chain of events, and that was kind of good from them. It kind of showed the potential, like I said, this game could have had. But I hated playing the 3 days. It was unneeded, and I'd say this was when I was most bored. If they just did, some sort of flashback where we know the reason for Abby's basically murder of Joel, then that'd be fine. But 3 days just to see her perspective of whatever Ellie was doing in those 3 days, just to see Abby's perspective was a bit unneeded. And I'd say this was definitely the most boring part of the game. We had some great scenes, like Abby with Lev climbing through the bridges at a very high point when obviously it's her fear. She's got a fear of heights, and obviously she had to try to overcome it, etc. This really was a slap to the fans. Those 10 hours could have been used for developing those premature characters they called Dina and Jesse, but hell no. We play as the villain to add an irrelevant side to the storyline.
Right, well done for reaching the end. Section 5/the end/conclusion. For this, I'm going to be a bit more abstract in terms of what I say. I'm not going to be as critical because I've been critical like 80% of the video. But for this part, I'm just going to be talking about the game in general, what I felt like, that sort of thing. Because, in a conclusion, the ending, that kind of stuff kind of works well, in my opinion. But if you do want to hear the end of it, please subscribe, like, and comment, man, for the effort that I put into this video. Let's get straight into it. Please just subscribe, like, and comment. Just drop a comment telling me what you think about this review and give me your personal review in the comments down below. And if I get enough reviews in the comment, I'll make a video surrounding your opinions of the game. Subscribe if you want to see more content, that sort of thing. But anyway, let's get back into it. So, obviously, we play as Ellie in Santa Barbara in California. First of all, why did Ellie and Dina just get a farm away from Jackson and not be in Jackson, for respect for Jesse? Jesse's family is still there, that sort of thing. First of all, I didn't mention this earlier, but I just want to say Jesse's death was very stupid, and it was just kind of for shock value, in my opinion, which is very easy to do. when it's something happens abruptly. You know, shock value isn't that hard to do. The fact that the game resorted to shock value without even developing the character was poor writing, in my opinion. You know, the character development as a whole was very weak in this game. I don't know, man. One thing they did do right was they managed to split the beginning, the middle, and the end of the game very well via terrain. You know, the beginning was very snowy, that sort of thing, cold, not really warm, that sort of thing. The middle was just kind of dark, you know, dark colors, lots of grays and dark greens, that sort of thing. And the end of the game visually was more bright and stuff like that, which is very weird because the end of the end was very dark in terms of its ending, not but also visually speaking in a way. Anyway, before you get confused, it felt different and refreshing to play as Eddie in obviously California. I don't know if that's because we've been playing as Abby for like 10 hours and, you know, I've just been getting excited to play back as Eddie, but I don't know. But let's just skip the good part. So Abby's obviously in prison. Ellie fights all the way, days upon days, months upon months of thinking of Abby and how Eddie couldn't beat her in the 1v1 and get her revenge for Joel's death. And now you're gonna let her go. You're about to drown her and you let her go. Now the game is dark themed, don't get me wrong. If that's the vibe they were going for, then it definitely succeeded. But it felt a bit abrupt and it just felt a bit like a mess. It just felt like the game was messy. Now the whole point of the game was they're trying to say revenge is not always good and revenge can be quite bad. But what's safe to say is it was a journey, right? It was a journey. So like at the end of the game, you feel somewhat relieved of your journey. Like regardless of whether you liked the game or not, whether you thought it was a good journey or a bad journey, you can look back on the road and be like, wow, okay, that took some time. So for me, it felt like I don't know, they were trying to polish a turd, for example. Like it just felt like a mess that had potential. I respect Naughty Dog, don't get me wrong, for what they were trying to do, but I just didn't like the game. I enjoyed the gameplay, but that was no secret during this review. I liked the gameplay, but I was here for the story. For the story, I just felt like they tried to branch out of the comfort zone compared to the first game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they did pay the price for a weaker storyline because of it. It just feels like they watched a motivational video on YouTube about how you should try things you should have never done before and step out your comfort zone and all this utopia, and as a result, they just did everything that would make the game bad. Like, I don't know, man. The ending is just dark and it's a bit spontaneous in my opinion. Ellie said in the first game that she's scared of two things, if you remember, guys. She's scared of scorpions and she's scared of ending up alone with no people around her, right? Fair enough. And that's exactly what happens. She ends up alone, which isn't a bad thing. If anything, it kind of would be like, oh, that's even sadder, you know. It kind of makes the game sadder, but it just reaches a whole new level of dark, and it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just like there wasn't really any build up to the dark ending. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, sure, the game is quite dark from the beginning, ever since Joel dies, but it just reaches a whole new level of dark, and it leaves it very uneven, if that makes sense. Like, it's meant to blend in, you know, from one like level 1 darkness and slightly builds up to being more dark, but no, the game is like somewhat dark and then all of a sudden just gets very dark, and it just, I don't know, it's a bit weird in my opinion. It doesn't feel natural. Like, it's meant to blend in, but it doesn't. And then, you know, Ellie loses her fingers, she loses Joel, she loses her friends, Jackson, Dina, and the baby, and it all happens out of nowhere. It's like, whoa, what's all of this, fam? Like, the game wasn't as developed, and it wasn't very developed for all of this to happen, you know. Like, and then later you see like she can't play the guitar, and it just happens so quick, and it's just like, I don't know, man. The whole game was very underwhelming for all of that to happen, and it's just like you're left with all these questions like, where did this all come from? Like, what is going on? It's just like, I don't know. That's my opinion. I enjoyed gameplay aspects like Ellie's birthday. You know, that's some of my favorite scenes. Ellie's birthday's flashback was good with Joel. Abby fighting the crazy zombie clicker with the stalker downs at the basement of the floor at the hospital, where, you know, that was really good. This boss zombie fight was great. The game just felt very underwhelming. It felt like there was a lot missing, and I felt like when they created the game, they felt like they did a good enough job for it to get very dark at the end. But it just felt underwhelming because there's a lot missing in my opinion, and what the game had was a mess. And it was just like, for me, it didn't feel like a Last of Us game compared to the first game anyway. Like, sure, you do get the Last of Us vibes, but compared to the first game, this one doesn't do the best job at recreating that Last of Us universe feeling. But that's just me, man. I just felt like there was a lot of potential, and it kind of just went downhill. Wow, okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Man, what a journey. If you watch this in parts or you watch this all in one go, I just want to say thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. I really do appreciate you. taking the time out of your day to listen to my opinion, someone that you've never ever met in real life, just to hear my opinion of the game. It values, like, and you value my opinion to an extent. It just really does, like, make me feel quite appreciative of you guys as my fans. You know, regardless of whether this gets 1 view, 10 views, 100 views, 1 million views, 10,000, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to make a video regarding my opinion on the game, because this is something that I want to actually, like, look back on, like, in a month, a year, and just think about what my opinion could be later of the game, you know, haven't thought about it, because I gave it a couple days before I started making the script for this video and my opinion on the video, and I was just like, okay, this is interesting. You know, I've taken a couple of days to gather my thoughts, and here I am. But anyway, guys, please subscribe, like, and comment if you want to see more videos like this. I took a lot of time making this video. Please leave your opinion of the game in the comments down below, because like I said, I reply to all comments. Leave your review down below. It doesn't have to be long. It can be a couple of sentences. It doesn't have to be long. But if you want to go for a long review, be my guest. Make sure you know I will read your review and reply to it, because I value everyone on this channel. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and in a bit.